Uh, Jill and I are doing this together, so we're kind of be a little spontaneous, but I'm Ocean Robbins, co-founder and CEO of Food Revolution Network, and I think I'm officially technically the host, so I'm welcoming you all to this event. We're going to talk a little bit about supplements and when are supplements helpful? When are they not helpful? If you're eating a predominantly whole foods, plant-based diet, you want to be getting your nutrients from food, but sometimes some supplements can be helpful. Sometimes they can be harmful. We're going to talk a little bit about all of that. Joel, anything you want to share as we're kicking things off here today?
No, it's an important subject. People do, because there's so much misinformation out there. So I'm really glad to have the opportunity to do this and clarify and to focus on some critical, important points because people's lives are at stake. It's really an important subject.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Well, so glad we get to do that. So first, a little bit of context. I think a lot of folks know, but let's just give a real quick overview. Joel, you have been active as a leader in the movement for food as medicine and for your, almost your whole life. Of course, you were an Olympic figure skater back in the day. And then you went into medicine and you have written numerous best-selling books. What is it, 6 at this point? Best-selling? 7 best-selling
Seven
books.
New York Times bestsellers. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, not many people can say that. And um, and of course the PBS specials and so many other things. You've seen a lot of people get better with whole foods, plant-based lifestyles. And you've
Yeah.
also seen, where the gaps can show up, right? Where people who are doing a lot of the right things still might be missing something, and you really want to help people close those gaps so that they don't fall prey to common deficiencies and issues, and so they can optimize the incredible benefits that come with a healthy diet and lifestyle. Anything more you want to say about that and what kind of brought you to this conversation today?
Exactly. It's that I'm really passionate about this, about nutritional excellence and imparting people information so they don't have to have, and I'm making these radical claims that you don't have to get heart attacks, you don't have to get strokes, you don't have to get cancer, you don't have to get dementia. We're making all these radical claims, diseases can be reversed. So I'm really into this idea of nutritional excellence and perfecting everything to maximize our chances to get the best opportunity to live the longest, healthiest life possible. So I've just been passionate about this. And when I saw that, my mentors in this movement originally came in, people, I got into this when I was in, 10 years old or 15 years old, or when my mentors, when I was a teenager, were the doctors from the natural hygiene movement, like Dr. Shelton and Dr. Sidwa and Dr. Vetrano and Dr. You know, Burton, and so in other words, and seeing the difficulties people got into even when they were eating healthy and what they were missing, it really made me target and search and research and devote my life to this subject to make sure we can maximize human health and put everything together and with it in a way not biased on some philosophical viewpoint. My viewpoint wasn't particularly at that point to promote a vegan diet or for animal rights. It was just to figure out how can we maximize human health and everything according to that. And then, of course, there are other benefits that you reach down the road, but still, I wanted to be influenced by science and have this be evidence-based and not have biases influence my decision-making and figure out a program that's best for people, my family, my patients, and people that count on me for advice. And I've been very grateful for having this rewarding career and having this information positively affect millions of people, right? It's crazy. It's just crazy. I'm so blessed with the opportunity. I've reached so many millions from my 5 television shows on public television. So, but anyway, let's get on to this.
All right, let's dive in. As we go along, folks, if you want to post any comments in the chat, feel free to do so. Top takeaways, aha moments, or just things you're appreciating or learning, or questions. We may not have time to get to too many questions because I've got a lot I want to ask Dr. Fuhrman, but we might. So feel free to chime in if you want to. I want to start off, Joel, with one big one. Why are some supplements harmful?
That's one of the most critical, important points to review. And there are multiple studies on this. And the main supplemental ingredients that are dangerous, the biggest two that are dangerous are folic acid which is linked to cancer in multiple studies, and vitamin A, which is retinol or acetyl palmitate. Those are the two most dangerous things to supplement. And there are studies on multivitamins containing folic acid and vitamin A showing an increased risk of cancer from people taking those supplements. So there's a 10-year study with women, multivitamins with folic acid increased breast cancer risk by 20 to 30%. And there's studies on folic acid supplements alone, where here's another study, a 6-year study where folic supplements increased all cause of cancer deaths by about 43%. So I'm saying here that folate is what's found in vegetables and beans, and folic acid is a synthetic substance that doesn't have the same biochemical properties as folate does. And when we eat a healthy diet, we're eating vegetables, we're eating plenty of folate, and that protects us against birth defects. When we're pregnant, that protects our body against getting cancer. So instead of teaching people that folate deficiencies could lead to neural tube defects when pregnant or other heart defects, and encouraging people to eat green vegetables when they're pregnant, the medical profession and the health authorities recommend people take a folic acid supplement, which takes the place of having to eat vegetables. And it's true, it does reduce the risk of neural tube defects, but it does so by increasing the risks of other problems, such as cancer, in both the child and the mother and later life effects. And we take there's folic acid in supplemental and nutritional yeast, in bread, in soy milks. Almost any B vitamin complex has folic acid in it. And it's cheap, it's synthetic, but in any case, the body can't keep folic acid out of the cell. It's absorbed too readily, even when you don't need it. And it promotes cellular replication. And even though it promotes cellular replication, which allows the neural tube to replicate when the child is developing, the replication it allows as an adult is cancer promoting. Now, I am making this radical statement. I think I'm the only person I've heard make this statement, that the current health authorities' recommendations for people to take folic acid during pregnancy contributes to the amount of childhood cancer deaths and the explosion of both acute blastocytic leukemia and brain tumors in children, who are obviously the leading cause of deaths in children other than accidents, are from diseases like from acute blastocytic leukemia. And my claim is based on the fact that most women of childbearing ages and most people understand that they're supposed to watch their folic acid level when they're pregnant to prevent neural tube defects. And if we were successful in educating the public on that issue, then why couldn't have we instead educated the public on the importance of eating green vegetables when they're pregnant? Because it's the consumption of green vegetables, not just during pregnancy, but even prior to conception, that is linked to reduced rates of children with acute blastocytic leukemia and neural tube defects and heart defects and brain defects and shunts. And we're saying that multiple defects are caused by lack of vegetables in the diet, and autism and brain tumors. And plus, we also have studied the fact of luncheon meats, not just during pregnancy, but even years prior to conception, affecting the risk of brain tumors and childhood cancers. Luncheon meats in the mother's diet before she conceives the baby. So I'm saying this was a missed opportunity to instruct women on the opportunity to eat green vegetables to get folate. And people eating healthy plant-based diets or Nutritarian diets like I recommend, their folate levels are in the upper range of normal. They're sometimes out of the normal range, being high. Taking more folate or more folic acid isn't beneficial to people who have adequate folate. And so what I'm saying, it's a big mess in the scientific community today that we've gone in a completely wrong direction. It's like using high blood pressure pills instead of getting people to cut salt out and exercising to eat right, or to using, we look to a pill, and that's like a medication. It's not a supplement. It's like it's a synthetic version of what the real thing's supposed to be, right? So that's the first thing too, right? And then the Cochrane reviews, they do reviews. The Cochrane are the Norwegian and Scandinavian group that are not funded by drug industry or by governments or by business or industry. They do independent analysis of multiple studies, and they show that taking these supplements, particularly vitamin A, is linked to increased risk of all-cause mortality. So we're talking here about, now I'm mentioning a review of 68 trials studied by the Cochrane Review, showing a 16% increased risk of death from the typical amounts of vitamin A added to supplements. You know what I mean? So we're talking about not super high doses, just the normal amounts. And even beta carotene has been linked to increased risk of death from lung cancer, but also about a 17% higher risk of death from heart disease in people who take beta carotene long term. The point is that these supplemental ingredients we're mentioning are better received in the natural form from food with their complexes. Like, for example, there are hundreds of different carotenoids. And when you take one, you don't absorb adequately of the others. You take a high dose, even vitamin E. There are 8 different fragments of vitamin E. When you take one vitamin E fragment, you're not getting the full symphony of vitamin E had you been eating vegetables, beans, and nuts to get your vitamin E, beans and nuts to get your vitamin E. So we're talking about there are certain nutrients that are particularly not wise to take. And let's review them one more time. Folic acid, vitamin A, beta carotene. You shouldn't be taking iron if you don't need it, or copper if you don't need it. I mean, if there's a deficiency of iron, sure. And even selenium is not a great idea to be taking selenium in a supplement. And the main reason for that is because our natural diet that we're eating is adequate in selenium. And we want to be able to eat Brazil nuts that are rich in selenium because there's so much beneficial health effects from eating even a couple of Brazil nuts a week. And the minute you start taking selenium in a supplement, then you can't eat Brazil nuts because you get too much selenium in your diet that makes the Brazil nuts potentially risky to eat if you already have your selenium receptors already filled. The point is it's better to get a lot of these things from real food, and we have the foods that give it to us,
Yeah. And real quickly, would you add vitamin E to that list? There's some research showing that supplemental vitamin E could be linked to some negative health outcomes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm putting vitamin E as part of that list. And the main reason is that when we take the vitamin E from nuts and seeds, we get a symphony orchestra of vitamin E fragments. And when you take a supplement of vitamin E, you're just taking one of those many fragments, and it's not going to give you these same effects, and it may even interfere with absorption. So it's better to get the vitamin E from real food as well.
Yep. And just real quick, someone asked about nutritional yeast. Dr. Fuhrman is not saying nutritional yeast is bad. He's saying like when nutritional yeast is fortified, if it's got folic acid added to it, then all the things you just heard about folic acid are present with the yeast. So getting a unfortified, or at least not fortified with folic acid nutritional yeast can be a great idea.
Right. We need nutritional yeast to be not fortified. We need soy milks and plant milks to not be fortified with B vitamins that contain folic acid. We have to look at the labels and not eat things that are fortified with folic acid, because people are taking their vitamins with folic acid. They're cheap vitamins, and they're also then taking foods with more folic acid in them as well. So it really complicates things. And it's amazing. Yeah. We're talking about, it takes decades to increase risk of cancer of doing something wrong. Decades. And even 6 or 10 year studies showing increased risk of cancer grossly underestimates the negative potential of these supplements, because they're not studying 30 years of use, and people are taking them their whole life.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's ask why you got into selling supplements. People see you as such a food advocate and activist, but you felt there was a need for something that wasn't available in the marketplace that could help people. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's 2 reasons here, which we're actually discussing right now. It's that, in my patient population, I wanted to offer them optimal health, and I wanted them to move towards a plant-based or even a totally vegan diet, but not have them be deficient in any elements. And so we know that everybody's aware that B12 is well advertised as to be necessary when you cut back animal products to a certain level or eliminate them. You could be deficient in B12. So the question that begets, are there any other supplemental ingredients that on a plant-based diet you're not getting optimal amounts of for optimal health? And the main 3, of course, are B12, zinc, and DHA EPA. So I wanted to have something for my patients, my family, my friends. I wanted to have something that didn't have folic acid, vitamin A, beta carotene, these things in them, but gave them the B12, the extra D they might need, the extra zinc. So I figured I'd give them those things. But the other reason I went into it was because of my mentors in the plant-based movement that developed Parkinson's disease or dementia in their later years, and seeking out this promise they offered to live a long, healthy life free of disease did not work for them. And what did they do wrong where they still got Parkinson's or dementia, these neurological diseases in later life? And that research brought to the forefront the fact that the omega-3 index and DHA and EPA exposure can be widely different in different people. And that the majority of people on vegan diets get levels that are linked to shrinkage of the brain with aging and higher risk of cognitive impairment. And also the studies I uncovered in purposely looking for them, and there are many at this point, more than a dozen studies show you get shrinkage of the brain and increases cognitive impairment with low omega-3 index and exposure to EPA and DHA. But the studies that uncovered that show increased susceptibility to toxins in the brain and a higher risk of Parkinson's disease in people who have low exposure to omega-3 fatty acids, partially explaining why Dr. Sidwa got Parkinson's and Dr. Shelton got Parkinson's and Dr. Burton got Parkinson's, and all these people who were mentors and friends and who were older than me, but people I looked up to, why they developed, Dr. Vetrano got dementia, why these people were developing these neurologic deficits, even though they were living a little longer. Dr. Shelton didn't live that long, but in any case, we found that the increased risk of certain toxins in the brain when your omega-3 index is low, and also zinc plays a role in the oxidative stress of the brain and protecting the brain against damage from toxins and inflammation as well. So zinc deficiency leads to neuronal apoptosis and immunosenescence, which means more rapid aging of the brain. And even though zinc is present in plant foods, the phytic acid inhibits absorption. And when people's diets are not ideal, or even when they are ideal, their zinc absorption goes down with aging. So we find multiple studies that have now been corroborate the earlier studies that zinc supplementation is linked to cognitive retention of cognitive abilities in later life, and reduces risk of and keeps your immune system functioning better. So you have lower risk of infection and pneumonia as well. There was one study, I think it showed, I have it here, showed that 15 milligrams of zinc a day was associated with a 74% reduced risk of death from prostate cancer and a 50% reduced risk of mortality from pneumonia in later life. So we're talking here that you get better zinc access from animal products. It's better absorbed from animal products. So since we don't absorb it as well, just a little extra zinc, not a lot, but just a little extra, bring our level to that level of adequacy is helpful as well. So to answer that question of why I had to make a supplement, I couldn't just order somebody else's supplement, was because so when I was giving people omega-3 fatty acid supplements, people would complain of bad taste or indigestion from them. So I'd send them off to independent laboratories to have them analyzed for rancidity scores. And I got into this many decades ago of analyzing these supplements from rancidity scores. And we found that most omega-3 fatty acid supplements were rancid. And they were rancid in proportion to the amount of months they kept outside a refrigerator. And we actually would put them on a shelf for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and have them analyzed for rancidity based on how many months they were outside of refrigeration. And all these omega-3 products, most of them, the fish oils coming from China, are produced at room temperature, stored and shipped at room temperature, packaged and bottled in the United States at room temperature. And the time they get to your shelf at the health food store, they've been at room temperature for more than a year and they're rancid. And they've been independently tested as well. They've been independently tested by other authorities, shown that many of them have 10 times the suggested upper limit for rancidity.
Yeah.
And lipids oxidize. And oxidized lipids are harmful, not good for you. And so most people taking fish oils, and even the vegan versions, are taking oxidized oils. So that's the other reason I said I got to figure this out. How can I not have brain shrinkage, have an adequate omega-3 index, get protection, but not have oxidized oils? So then we started to realize the only way we could do it was speak to the manufacturers and have them refrigerate our product, and as soon as we get it in from the trucks, we keep it in a big storage house, a big refrigerated, keep it refrigerated. So I enabled myself, even that I had to spend a lot more money, pack things in glass, put them in droppers, keep them in refrigeration. At least I have a product that's not rancid? Who wants to take a rancid oil and you're telling people to take it? So I literally had to do this. And because it
Yeah.
was part of my mission to develop what I wanted my community to do that was proper. And there wasn't those available products out there at that time. And even today, it's, I think I'm still the only one making a refrigerated EPA DHA product. And you can't smell the rancidity. That's not an adequate way to test if something's rancid. And they put flavorings in the to cover it up, the rancidity. They put flavorings in these oils to make them taste cherry flavor and this to make so you can't taste it. You can't smell it. And a lot of them put in capsules, so you're swallowing it so you don't taste it. So we also have ours in a dropper. So you put it on a spoon or you put it in your mouth and you can taste it and you can see that it doesn't taste like gasoline, So the question is, I felt that this is consistent with my mission to move to be in that my niche is of nutritional excellence and to develop the ability to do it, make the recipes taste great, make this doable, have the supplements available, have the ketchup made with no sugar and salt in it, to make this doable for people. And I should also mention that when I got into this business, I realized that, like when you put let's say a pomegranate extract or a green tea extract into a product, now the manufacturer, I could pick 10 different grades of pomegranate extract. I could pick a grade that costs $30 a pound, or I could pick one that costs $120 a pound. You know what I mean? So there's 10 different grades of everything you can buy. So, so if I buy somebody, I want to put I'm going to say, is the most expensive grade better than the cheaper grade? Let's analyze in which more absorbable, which has been tested for purity, which has the best outcomes, which type of EGCG. We're talking here about there's a decision to be made with every single ingredient you get, whether you choose a cheaper, less effective, or more expensive product. And I always err on picking the most expensive product or the most tested in most amount of studies done on that type of substance, and making these choices that I can feel that, I'm producing the Rolls Royce of product for my particular niche. You know what I mean? So yeah, I felt that this was an important part of my career.
Yeah, I mean, you've always been talking about nutritional excellence. There's a lot of paths that are better than the standard American diet and a lot of ways to do better than the norm. But if you want to optimize, the difference between good and great or excellent can truly be life or death too. And it is extra work and or extra cost in some cases to go that extra mile. But on the other hand, when we look at the cost of sickness and the cost of premature death, it's a cost very worth bearing, because in some ways I feel like your whole approach can help us save the $4.5 trillion a year the US alone is spending on medical care by optimizing health with food and select quality supplements as well. And I just want to thank you for that. I wonder if you can tell us about the biphasic dose response curve. What does this mean? Why is it important?
It's important so people know that more is not better. They've got to understand this concept that if you feel that, we know that iodine is important. And because if you're deficient in iodine, you could develop hypothyroidism. And they add iodine to salt that people use in their food. And we're advising people not to salt their food, right? The RDI for iodine is 150 micrograms. But too little iodine does cause hypothyroidism and can be an issue. But if you start taking too much iodine, that can also suppress the thyroid and cause hypothyroidism and increases the thyroid tumors and other problems. The biphasic dose response means, yes, too little vitamin D is bad, and too much vitamin D is bad. There's a sweet spot in the middle that optimizes health. Too little omega-3 fatty acids can cause atrial fibrillation and increase of cardiac arrhythmia and brain shrinkage. But too much omega-3, too much fish oil, taking 3 to 4 fish oil capsules a day, can thin the blood, suppress immune function, and increase risk of atrial fibrillation. Now, I just said that too little omega-3 fatty acids can cause atrial fibrillation, and I also said too much omega-3 fatty acids can cause atrial fibrillation. The biphasic dose response means that too little vitamin D can cause breast cancer, and too much vitamin D can cause breast cancer. it means that both too little and too much can cause problems and often cause the same problems from too little as too much. And we have to look at the whole gamut of available studies to ascertain what's the sweet spot in the middle that's the optimal dose. Because when you go to get information off the internet, you get advocates telling you all sides of the story. There are people saying, don't take any this, and people who say take so much iodine that was saying, yikes, that's so toxic, or take so much vitamin D, take 10,000 of vitamin D, take no vitamin D. So we're trying to be consistent with the science, have it be evidence-based as the evidence changes, and pick levels that are not going to be harmful, even when we're supplementing. And don't just judge something that if a little bit is good, more is better. You follow me?
I do, absolutely. And it's so important getting the right amount. It's sort of I call it the Goldilocks principle. Not too little, not too much, just right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the critical supplements that healthy eaters might want to think about taking. You've worked with a lot of people who are eating a whole foods, plant-based diet. They're not eating a lot of saturated fat or a lot of fried foods or a lot of added sugars or even a lot of sodium. But there's still some things they may benefit from incorporating. Tell us about those key things.
Right. There's not that many of them, that are important to supplement with, but we're highlighting a few of those just so people are aware. And we take more B12 than the RDI. We take a higher dose of B12 intentionally because when we're taking a supplement, you're taking it usually once a day. And when people are eating animal products, they're eating animal products multiple times a day, and the body only absorbs a little bit of a time. Just like we only absorb a little bit of a time of like iron, we only absorb a little bit of a time. But the point is that we take a relatively hefty dose of B12. That's very, very important. The second most important one we mentioned is zinc, right?
Yeah.
The third most important one is probably iodine. Now, you don't have to get iodine from a supplement. You can take kelp or you can get a seaweed, but you can overdose with kelp, and not all seaweeds have iodine. So it makes it easy if you just have the RDI to make sure you're getting iodine when you're not salting your food, right? So iodine is probably number 3. And then we have vitamin D, which is very variable on people's skin tone, how much melanin is in their skin, how much sunshine they get, how prone they are to skin cancer, how good their diet is, and how they absorb it with you. So vitamin D is important for most people to make sure they have, at least they're not deficient in it. We don't have to push them to a high level, but so vitamin D.
And that's an easy blood test as well.
That's the good point, is that it's hard to test for iodine and zinc. It's easy to test for B12, iron, and vitamin D. Vitamin D is the 25-hydroxy blood test. I don't, want people to, if they're a little bit under the normal range of 30 to 60, like if they're 28 or 29, they don't have to be worried about that. That's fine. But if they start to be below 25, they should consider supplementing a little bit more. And they can adjust that. That's not a big deal to supplement. And the B12, the test for B12 that most actively reflects need is you can do a homocysteine, which elevates in B12 deficiency, but homocysteine can also elevate with folate deficiency. But MMA, methylmalonic acid, is the test that elevates only from B12 deficiency, or from the other cause of MMA elevation would be very rare. So if MMA starts to go up, because B12 itself in the blood is not always a good indicator of deficiency, right? And then, of course, the best test to see if you need iron supplementation, and most people should not be supplementing with iron. Even when you're pregnant, you shouldn't willy-nilly just follow the cookbook approach and take iron if your ferritin is in the good range, right? So if your ferritin is not, yes, you should. But studies have shown that giving everybody an iron supplement during pregnancy helps some people that are deficient, but it also hurts some people that weren't deficient. So you really should know where you are before you just take it for no reason. So then the ferritin blood test is the most accurate to test your iron stores. So we're not recommending that. So again, it's folate, it's zinc, iodine, B12, vitamin D, and then it's the EPA DHA, and that omega-3 index is available on a finger stick or a blood test, which is a relatively accurate test. And now we have a meta-analysis of 17 studies put out by a very, unaffiliated with industry group. No biases, no interest in no affiliation with any company of making it. 17 showing those in the highest fifth of the omega-3 index were 15 to 18% less likely to die over that 15-year study period. And then we have another study that came out after that showing about a 5-year loss of life in all-cause mortality and all-cause cancer from those with a low omega-3 index compared to in the highest fifth or highest quintile. So we have both those studies corroborating each other now, showing that it corroborates a dozen studies. We show that the omega-3 index is linked to brain shrinkage or brain size with aging. And now we're showing that a low omega-3 index can increase all-cause mortality by leading to more oxidative stress and leading to more less ability of the body to clear toxins. So that's also, so the overwhelming evidence right now is that we're using clinical evidence, not theoretical evidence. So theories, a lot of people will try to use theoretical evidence on mice studies, and there's all types of crazy opinions out there. But we have an overwhelming amount of clinical evidence with human subjects showing benefit for people to have an adequate omega-3 index, which does correlate with usually with their intake. But there are some individuals who have such high activity of the conversion enzymes that convert short chain ALA from flaxseed or walnuts into the longer chain EPA and DHA. There are just some individuals that have levels in their blood of omega-3 index of 7 or 8 already without supplementing that would not necessarily have to supplement. But with the studies we've done show that 84% of people on vegan diets have insufficient levels for good health and do need to supplement. And some people try to do dietary gymnastics, take a lot of flaxseed to get their levels up. But I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that you try to take huge amounts of flax seeds, because I want people to take flax seeds, but not more than 2 tablespoons a day. There's too much potential risk of cadmium or thallium. It's better to take a mixture of things, chia seeds, walnuts, different types of nuts. You get benefit from pistachio nuts. You get benefits from Brazil nuts. It's better to take a variety and not try to restrict all omega-6 intake. Boast up your omega-3 intake with either flax oil or too much flax seeds, and then try to artificially get your omega-3 index to look more favorable. It's better to eat normally, a balanced diet. Don't take too much of any one food, so you're getting a lot of food variety, and then look at your own omega-3 index and see how much you should need to supplement to keep your level in the favorable range. So not a huge amount of things you have to supplement with, we're talking here.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you. You mentioned earlier that too much omega-3s could be a problem.
Yes.
Is that theoretical, or do you actually see that with any regularity? And I'm asking partly because I'm wondering if somebody's omega index, if they're not in that 84%, if they're in the 16% who have enough, is there a risk of getting too much? That's not just theoretical, but do you actually see that with any regularity? Because should some people not take EPA or DHA, as opposed to maybe they don't need it? Is it contraindicated?
No, I'll tell you why. Well, not if you're taking my supplement.
Okay.
Because our supplement is a nutritive dose, not a pharmacologic dose. See, the cardiologists are giving huge doses of omega-3 fish oil to try to suppress triglycerides, right? They're trying to, or to thin the blood. And I might give a person a huge dose who has Crohn's disease to try to be an immunosuppressant. I'm giving a pharmacologic dose. I'm giving a medication in dose that has medicinal effect. And in those dosages, I'm willing to accept the fact that there's some risk with that high dose of fish oil, because in this case, it's better than giving them a drug to have the anti-inflammatory or blood thinning effects. You know what I mean? But in the dose that we're giving people, 250 milligrams of EPA plus DHA, the low dose we're taking, there's no possibility of harm. The possibility of harm is when you're taking high dose fish oil over 1 gram a day. So even if a person had a level that was adequate and they were taking our nutritive dose, 1 dropper full of EPA DHA in the 200 to 300 or 200 to 400 range, there'd be no risk that low amount would cause a problem. But they wouldn't need to take it, but it wouldn't hurt them to take it. However, we do have studies on people taking high dose fish oil, and plus the fact that these oils are also rancid. So you're getting rancid oil in higher doses. It's only in the high dose that they may raise cholesterol a bit. It's only in the high dose they may thin the blood. And it's only in the high dose that they may have immunosuppressive effects to increase risk of infection. So we're talking about, you wouldn't have that occur with taking a vegan supplement in a nutritive dose. Only with a, and you couldn't even take a vegan supplement in a pharmacologic dose because it's too expensive. Because the vegan, and especially ours, is expensive because we have to pack it in glass and make it in small quantities and make sure it's refrigerated and shipped in trucks. And so ours is more costly to make. But in any case, even the regular cheaper vegan supplements become too expensive if you try to take the amount you can get in a fish oil in a really high dose. You know what I mean? So the answer is, you'd have to be taking fish oil to have those harmful effects, and you'd have to be taking more than a gram of fish oil a day to have those detrimental effects, which we advise against people do it unless there's an important reason that they need to do that. Other people who have depression, we might put on a high EPA fish oil for the first year to get them out of depression and to get their brain functioning better, because the high EPA, and we're particularly using a DHA favorable for long-term nutritive use, but a high EPA supplement for pharmacologic use for depression or autoimmune disease, or for blood thinning effects.
Yeah.
So they're like different supplements, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So just to recap a few of the highlights we've heard so far, on the avoid list, we've got vitamin A and also beta carotene, which is related, folic acid, and then also selenium and E, and then selenium because you want to be able to eat Brazil nuts and you can get too much. Then we on the beneficial, we've heard vitamin B12, zinc, iodine, and then EPA and DHA, appropriate amounts. And then we've also heard that D is often beneficial, and it's good to get levels checked. And iron, do not take it. It's an avoid if you have enough, but if you don't have enough, it can be beneficial, and it's very specific to testing. Just wanted to recap what I've been hearing. Sound good, Joel? Okay, great.
Good recap.
All right. Okay, excellent. All right. Of course, just to be clear, I should have said this at the beginning. None of this is medical advice. We're sharing coaching and insights, but of course, always consult with a qualified healthcare professional about your particular realities and needs, because these are general principles, but you're the only you on the planet. And of course, there's exceptions to every principle and rule somewhere out there in the world. Let's talk a little more about EPA and DHA. Specifically, you have a concern about brain health and dementia that includes vegans.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
We know that most people get dementia because they don't eat fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds and beans. Most people eat dementia because they don't have the antioxidants to protect the brain, and their body is toxic from eating junk food, rancid oils, fried foods, right? Narrowing the blood vessels of the brain. So the average American doesn't get dementia because of deficiency of omega-3 fatty acid. But once you move to this healthy diet, where we're getting enough antioxidants and we have great circulation, why should a vegan get any dementia? There should be zero risk of a vegan getting dementia, and there's not. So the question is, do vegans have no dementia? And no, they actually, the Seventh-day Adventist Health Study 2 showed vegans had more dementia than the non-vegans did, believe it or not, and some more strokes too. And for this reason we're talking about. So, but even if they had a little less, it still wouldn't question the fact, why should they get any? And the answer is a different cause of dementia in the vegan population. They're not getting from a high healthy eating population, like my mentors who were natural hygienists who lived on raw foods and all these healthy foods and still got dementia or Parkinson's, right? And so in those cases, then the omega-3 index becomes an indicator of risk. And the lack of EPA, DHA in those people are putting them at increased risk. So it's a more narrow segment of the population where EPA and DHA is one of the contributory factors to dementia, whereas it may not be the main factor in meat-based or standard American diet eating population. So yes, so we want to do everything right. We want to be on a plant-based or vegan diet and still maintain an optimal omega-3 index. So we're talking about the measurements of how we can measure a person's blood or health, determine how long they're going to live and how healthy they're going to be in later life. We're going to look at the nutritional concentration of their cells, the toxicity of their cells, right? Their low level of body fat, which causes inflammation. And I'm going to look at their omega-3 index to be favorable. What I'm saying is a favorable omega-3 index is the fourth part of the puzzle to enable a healthy eater to be able to master a long lifespan without brain shrinkage, dementia, or other neurologic deficits can come from omega-3 deficiency. So it's an important part of the puzzle that some vegans are reticent to accept, or because of their predilection or bias to want the vegan diet to be perfect, are looking for excuses not to supplement. And I'm saying, unless you got a number on your blood test that's adequate, I wouldn't take that risk, because we have too many studies that can't be thrown in the garbage pail and ignored, even though people like to do them. So you know how people just like focus on what they want to believe and they ignore the reality of what's out there? And we're trying to say we can't deny reality here. A low level is not safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a decent amount of research finding plant-based eaters with high levels of ALA, the short chain omega-3 fatty acid, because they're eating their flax and chia seeds and their walnuts, but lower levels of EPA and DHA, which of course is why you're focusing there, because we do want to get our ALA from food, as much
Well,
as
you're
possible.
making a good point, is that ALA adequacy doesn't essentially assure us to have EPA and DHA adequacy. And the other thing is true too, that taking a supplement with EPA and DHA doesn't assure ALA adequacy. And ALA adequacy is a separate benefit. For example, the myocytes, the cells in the heart, are more likely to develop a cardiac arrhythmia due to ALA deficiency. That means, and that's one of the reasons eating nuts and seeds have been shown to reduce the risk of cardiac arrhythmias, both atrial fibrillation, and life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias. In the Physicians' Health Study, we had a 60% low risk of sudden cardiac death for people eating 1 ounce of nuts and seeds compared to those physicians who did not eat nuts and seeds. And the sudden cardiac death was caused by irregular heartbeats, not a clot in the heart. So we're saying here that diets need to include short-chain fatty acids from nuts and seeds, regardless of your omega-3 index is adequate or not. And that's an important new concept that we have to make sure people are aware of, that eating your walnuts and eating your flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds are an important part of a healthy diet. And at this point in my dietary, you could say, career, I recommend that people, when they eat their nuts and seeds, I try to have half my nut and seed intake be from those that contain omega-3, and my other half be from the non-omega-3, so I'm balanced. It doesn't have to be accurately balanced, but I'm just being careful. I'm just being aware of consuming my walnuts and my hemp seeds and my flax seeds and my chia seeds, and not just like what I like to do is eat all pistachio nuts and cashews all day. You know what I mean? To keep the pistachios and cashews balanced with some walnuts and flax seeds and chia seeds.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about spices and extracts. Are there some, particular compounds, let's say, that are so potent that we should really be looking to include them on a regular basis?
That's a really good point too, which we talk about and I've been involved with lately, is because I'm so much involved with the cancer community of people who either are at high risk of cancer, want to protect themselves from getting cancer, or have cancer. And we're saying that dietary excellence is a proven methodology to extend lifespan, to prevent cancer and prevent recurrence and extend lifespan when people have cancer. And we're finding that we get dramatic benefits from dietary improvements and from utilization of a wide variety of food extracts. We're talking here about using curcumin extracts, turmeric, black turmeric, EGCG, green tea extracts, mushroom extracts, grapeseed extracts, astragalus. We're talking here about, and also, just parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and, basil and oregano, and raw garlic. Raw garlic. And who gets raw? You can't eat raw garlic. It tastes crap. It tastes terrible. But we have this raw garlic, which I have a little, dried raw garlic in a little crusher thing that I'm like sprinkling on my food now, which really tastes good. So yes, you'd be surprised that, and I've learned this lately, is that even a little bit of these foods added to your diet has been shown to have beneficial effects. A little bit of raw garlic, a little bit of green tea, a little bit of mushrooms, a little bit of extracts, a little bit of these different herbs and spices have a beneficial effect. I'll highlight one study here for a second. There's the Oncoblot company used to produce blood tests to detect cancer in people before they have a mammogram, could show a cancer. The body throws out proteins in the cells from early cancers early cancer, signs of cancer. So they would take a population of Americans and find about half of Americans over the age of 60 have a positive, the ENOX2 proteins that are exuded from cancer cells, right? This is way before a mammogram or a prostate, or a biopsy, you could find prostate cancer in the body or breast cancer. What I'm saying right now is about half of all adult Americans have cancer cells in their body, and the science is advancing so we can detect those cancer cells decades before the mammogram could show a visual cancer, let's say. And what these studies showed was that when you give people like green tea extract, and they're not even a nutritarian diet, or you give them curcumins and turmeric extracts, there was one study that gave them a certain type of a green tea extract, that 90% of those that had the cancer markers in their blood, their cancer markers disappeared within a year of them taking this supplement. So these supplements are powerfully at helping the body defenses against cancer. They're anti-angiogenic. They support immune recognition and surveillance of cancer cells. It can help induce apoptosis. And some of these things don't allow cancer cells to replicate. So for example, I'll utilize a supplement that we designed based on the scientific studies that has these turmeric and black turmeric and curcumin extracts from turmeric, and the 13 green tea extracts have been shown in this study to be most effective, with some other substances that make for it increase its efficacy. And we've given it to people with cancer around the clock, like 7, 12, 10, middle of the night, all to help and show that we starve the cancer cells, prevent them from replicating, duplicating what's done in these studies. So these elements have such documented benefits that I'm now starting to take them as a supplement in a low dose, not around the clock like with a cancer patient, but just I'm going to put some green tea extract in my diet, or take a little green tea with mushroom extract tea, or I'm going to take a little bit of instead of taking, I designed that supplement for people with cancer, but I'm going to take one of them. The cancer patient may take 4 or 5 of them, but I'll take one of them added to my diet just because I'm not eating all those foods today. So in other words, yes, there's these supplemental additives, particularly, mushrooms are great, but why not take the 10 or, different mushroom extracts that are shown to have anti-cancer effects, in addition to the 2 or 3 mushrooms I ate today. I have that more mushroom comprehensiveness in my program. So yes, there are certain things that we think give extra benefit to a diet, and we're finding that modern science is supporting this, showing more nutritional diversity in our diet adds more lifespan and anti-cancer benefits.
Thank you. Jeanette asked me to ask you about taking vitamin K2 along with D3. Can you comment on that? And while we're on the topic, calcium for postmenopausal women.
Absolutely. An excellent question, by the way. And the problem with calcium is that doctors were recommending people take high-dose calcium pills, like 1,000 milligrams of calcium, or 1,500 milligrams of calcium a day, or 1,000 twice a day. And taking high-dose calcium at one time spikes too much calcium in the blood, and too much calcium rushed into the bloodstream it could be deposited where it should not be deposited, like in blood vessels or in the heart, or And so we're talking here that we no longer recommend calcium supplements, but we do recommend for postmenopausal women to take a low dose of about 150 to 200 milligrams of a food-based calcium added to a meal. So they're just because, they're prone for osteoporosis, and which is a normal consequence of aging. It's not a disease necessarily, osteopenia. It's normal to lose muscle mass with aging and to lose some bone mass with aging. We're trying to resist that from happening. You're going to never maintain your youthful bone mass and muscle strength. We're all going to lose some as we age, but I'm exercising in the gym and using the power plate and trying to resist that from happening. And also postmenopausal women paying attention to that and eating their green vegetables, chewing them really well, and taking a little bit of calcium with the meals, particularly if you can get a food-based calcium, so it's absorbed more slowly and doesn't spike calcium in the blood that can show the side effects that we've seen with people taking more conventional calcium supplements. So I do recommend that. And I did, and taking a little vitamin D and K2 mixed together seemed to be beneficial in most of the studies on this subject, showing better bone mass, better results when adding K2 to the calcium. Except I'm no longer sure about that, because it seems that when people are eating as healthy as I recommend, and you're getting a diet with so much K1, and then you're getting so much nutritional diversity of healthy bacteria in the gut, it seems that a person with a healthy gut can make enough K2 from the K1 you're eating and the bacteria and the healthy bacteria milieu in the gut. So I'm kind of minimizing my idea that K2 is so important to supplement when the people are already eating so healthily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But a lot of people are eating healthier than the norm, but not quite at the optimal peak of everything you recommend. So there is a range there, obviously, and that's where sometimes supplements can help bridge some of that gap. And just to be clear, if everyone isn't, K1 is abundant in the plant kingdom. K2 is not. It's in natto and a few fermented foods, and it's in animal products. We can make K2 from K1 in our guts, but there's no good test for K2 widely available to assess our levels, and it does seem to be associated with a range of health benefits, including fighting osteoporosis or helping strong bones. It seems, to put it really oversimply, that vitamin D helps us to absorb calcium that we consume, and vitamin K2 helps us to shuttle it, if you will, into the bones, get it where we want it, and away from the arteries where we don't want it. But these are general principles, and as you're saying, with an optimal healthy diet, you may get plenty of calcium from your food. You may get D from the sun, possibly. Certainly, you can get K2 from K1, but a little bit of these things can be beneficial also, just to make sure that you're okay, but overabundance maybe not necessary or helpful.
That's correct. And we have seen studies that showing that the little bit of extra calcium with a little bit of extra D and K2 has bone benefits for women. Definitely we see benefits for women, right? So
and we do see higher rates of hip fractures in vegan women postmenopausal than omnivorous. And so this is one, but when they take small amounts of calcium and D and K2, those disadvantages evaporate and their bones get stronger. So
now I've seen those studies too, but I've analyzed the diets that these vegans were eating, and they were not eating a Nutritarian diet. They were, and I put on my website and my blog once that the analysis of the diet, compared to the Nutritarian diet that includes beans and nuts and seeds and green vegetables, and showed, well, double the calcium, much more protein, much more, in other words, the dietary quality was so poor in some of these vegans. So I don't want people to think that it was the vegan diet per se.
Yes.
You can design it, but in any case, part of the whole picture, right? We're looking at.
Yeah, really, we're looking at a standard American diet version of a vegan diet, which is no real benefit. Okay, we're nearing the end of our time, and I really want to hear, because you've created a particular solution for a lot of this called Complete Greens, and I'd love if you can tell us about the Complete Green supplement you created and why you made it and what it is.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think it was my daughter Jenna's idea. See, I had the women's and men's multi, and then people would take the extra Ultracell Biotech and the Immune Biotech to get the extra mushrooms and get the extra green tea. And so I figured, and both my son and my daughter didn't like swallowing pills, and then I had so many patients didn't like swallowing pills. So they said, why don't you just make it into a powder so it's easier to swallow and make it taste good? So now I have all the needed ingredients that was in my multis in the powder, and I also added what was in my Ultracell and my Immune Biotech, those ingredients with the 10 different anti-cancer mushrooms in there, plus the green tea and the astragalus and the beta-glucans and the curcumins and the sertine, the special type of green tea that's really, and then I put the broccoli speck extract in and other rare berries and rare beneficial health foods to make this one superfood powder. So it takes the place of like having 5 different bottles on your desk. I don't have to take my mushroom extract, my green tea extract separately, so I put it all into one thing. So it has everything my multis have. So I still sell the multis, but now I have the Complete Greens that takes like my 5 best products and puts it all into one package. So people just put it in a scoop, and it tastes really good, So I usually take it just with water. You can put it in soy milk in your cereal, but I just take it with water. It just makes the water taste better, so it's pretty good. And so, yeah, I've been using that lately. And so many of my guests at my retreat and so many people following my plan are grateful or say, well, this is great. I don't like to swallow. I didn't like to swallow pills anyway, and plus I get everything I need in the one thing. So it's really, it doesn't mean that somebody with cancer is going to get I still can give somebody with cancer a higher dose. So they might still need a separate supplement to boost their level over and above the level in the greens, the complete greens. But for those of us who we're not taking we want the extra dose. It's really a great supplement, a great all-purpose supplement. So people could just take that. And the only thing else they have to add is the EPA DHA refrigerated liquid, and they've got everything they need.
So the complete greens and EPA DHA, that's the combo. Yeah, because you cannot, complete greens is shelf stable, right? You don't have to keep it in the fridge.
Right. It's shelf stable. Yeah. And also, you're taking a powder with a scoop, so you're not going to have it on your shelf for years anyway. It's going to be used up pretty quickly, But,
okay, amazing.
Now, the DHA EPA, it doesn't go rancid in a few weeks or even a month. So if a person was traveling with it, they wouldn't have to, an out of the refrigerator for a few weeks. It's not going to quickly grow rancid. The rancidity scores go up they take probably a few months to start becoming rotten. And then, and everything you buy in a health food store has been out of the refrigerator for months and months, But then once it stays, so when they get the product, we do recommend they put it in the refrigerator, especially people buying them in bulk, or they buy like a whole bunch of them on a sale or something, and then they should definitely keep them all in the refrigerator.
Yeah. Yeah. And you keep them dark too, right? You don't want them exposed to light.
We have it already packed in dark glass. Yes, and the refrigerator's dark anyway, but yes, they're dark.
Yeah.
And what's also, it's the DHA, the liquid, is very important to have glass packaging too.
Well, so much wealth of information, and I really want to thank you not just for doing the research, but also for making it so accessible for so many of us to apply this with the products that you've developed. I'm sure some people, would say, "Oh, does it sort of decrease credibility to be selling a supplement?" But I think the opposite is true in this case. You're selling the supplement because you want to help people, and you saw a gap and a need, and you're willing to take on the stress of manufacturing and dealing with all the logistics of that, which is no fun, supply chains, etc., to make it available to people. Because at the end of the day, we all know that cancer doesn't care a heck of a lot how many books you read or how much you know. It cares what you eat and how you live. And this is all about action. It's all about results. It's all about making it happen in people's lives. We need knowledge, right? But we also need action to get outcomes. And that's what your life and work are about, is helping people. And I just thank you for that. And so folks know, Dr. Fuhrman has a whole wealth of amazing resources. They're being posted in the chat here. And I think everybody who's registered will also get follow-up emails with opportunities to take advantage of this. But the complete greens is really the biggest one that we wanted folks to know about today, because it's taking all the different things that you found useful and putting them together under one delicious roof. So, Joel, I just want to thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us today. There will be a recording of the number of people who have been asking. I think that link will be sent out as well, so you can watch it later or even share it with friends or loved ones. And let's make this happen, folks. Your body was meant to thrive, and when you give it the nutrients that it needs, you can feel better, you can live longer, you can have a clearer mind and more vitality and more pleasure and more joy and more ability to do the things you were born to do. So thank you all for being here. And Joel, any final words you want to share before we wrap up our time?
No, just that we're lucky to have the ability to live in an era where actually science can affect our judgment, and we have the opportunity to use smart nutrition, and to live in an area where we can get food all year round that we're not, healthy food. It gives us this unique opportunity to live longer and healthier than any earlier humans could have lived. Even though while people are committing suicide with food and eating all the wrong things, at least we have the opportunity to do the best we could do if we want to do it. So it gives us that freedom that we can achieve, that ability to live, to be healthy we could not achieve before.
Love it. All right. To your best health, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Have a beautiful day.